Hey everyone, it's Lisa. I have a nebbish video for you from my sewing layer. I want to talk about yield from with the fabric, and most specifically, how you can use. Come closer. I'm opening up my trench coat and I'm asking you to look at the rulers that I have for you. This folded corner clipper is so useful, and you've seen me do a video on it before. This is a superlative instrument for doing clipped corners on any type of block that you have, so long as it fits, fits 5 inches. And they do make larger ones. And Antler Design has one as well, but this is a better tool for some other applications. So what I want to share with you is a method of looking at this ruler that, number one, helps you understand it, and number two, helps you determine what applications it might be useful to you in your sewing room. Now, Katrina over at the sewing room had this a beautiful block. It was a snowballed block, and it had lots and lots of 3.5-inch squares. And of the 3.5-inch squares, 80% of them were basically going to be wasted. And I don't like to waste fabric, and that's why I don't like the traditional way of snowballing units. Now, if you like the little half square triangles and you have plenty of fabric and plenty of money and you don't care about those things, that's that's fine. And a lot of people love those little half square triangles. I don't. I don't want to futz around with them. So anyway, enter the folded corner clipper. Now, first we have to do some math so you can understand the so what in what I'm trying to tell you. If you have a if you have a 3.5-inch square, all right, and you have to sew on that square, and then you have to cut 1/4 inch away. So on your base fabric, all of this goes away, and you can decide to sew and, do whatever you want with that. I would rather have an engineered piece that is already cut. Get rid of that. That's already cut, so it has the seam allowance in it, and that's what this tool does. And if you look over here, you can see what I've done. So if I have a 3.5-inch strip, because I need 3.5 inches, that does not change. What changes is how I choose to construct my block, and I'm choosing to construct my block by cutting a 3.5-inch width strip. I'm going to use my folded corner clipper and I'm going to show you a few things about that, because I've already predetermined the width that I need to cut this rectangle, and it's basically 3.5 by 4.25, and I'm going to show you how I got to that number. So if I just do this one 3.5 by 4.25, I make one cut and I am done. And I don't have to do all this back and forth. I can save my wrist, I can save my blade, my arm, my brain, my time. So how does that math work out? Well, the math works out, I'll extol the virtues of Pythagoras at another time, but to know this, in order for the math to work and the measurements to work, this blunt tip needs to be 3/8 of an inch. And you would know why that is, because of Pythagoras. If this is 1/4 of an inch, remember this is on an angle, so that angle is going to be 1.414 times the seam allowance, right? So, and that's of 1/4 of an inch. So that's going to give us, basically 3/8, which is what we can measure on our ruler. And if I were to, and how that works is, if you need to not have a equation, but I'm going to give you one, you would simply draw your line here and just take your ruler and measure across. Now the problem becomes, you've got fat pencils and 1/8 marks, so that's why it's useful to have an equation. So here's the equation. The equation is the I'm trying to find. Well, that won't work. Well, we'll just keep using our green. The x equals, and what is x? This is x, right? You know what this is. This is 3.5. That's the size of your square. X is equal to the square size plus 3/8 plus 3/8 or 6/8. Okay, and if I take 3 4/8 and 6/8, I get 4 2/8 or 4 1/4. It's really pretty simple math. You just need to remember to double the 3/8 and the 3/8, and that's taking care of the seam allowance as well as that little bit on the diagonal, and that's where the 6/8 come from. So why does that even matter? Well, it matters due to strip yield, and so you don't. We'll just do a. Okay, so if I cut with the fabric, I use 43 inches, all right, of usable. And that might be different based on the fabric that you have, but for quilting fabric, it's typically 44 for regular stuff, not backing. So if you take the width of fabric and you divide it by your cut, which in this case is 3.5 inches, I'm going to do 3.5%, 3.5 inches. That's going to give you a yield of 2.28 squares. Well, you can't do anything with that 2.28 squares, but if you needed to know what size residual you have, you take 0.28 and times 3.5, and that'll give you what the size of that square that you can get out of it. So we'll say it's 12 squares. Using my method, we've calculated for x. X is 4 1/4. I've already cut my fabric 3.5 inches wide. And all right, nebbish alert. You could determine which is the better cut for you, the 4 1/4 or the 3.5. We're not doing that now, but you could do that. So now we're taking 43. We're dividing it by 4 1/4, right? That's the size of the cut that the subcut that we need to make, and that's going to be 10. And you're going, gosh, well, why is that important? It's important because 10 equals 20 because the yield is 2 for each of our. All right, so I'm going to get 20 of these, and when I cut them in half, and I'm just placing my ruler down once, when I cut them in half, I get 2 beautifully sized pieces. And you do still need to take care, but it's a lot easier to get accurate when you're just putting this down one time and cutting in the direction of your right hand versus doing this or spinning it around. All those things take time, cost you effort. So what does that mean? It means that the this is the ding, ding, ding. This is 2/3 more yield. Okay, and who doesn't like 2/3 more yield? And that what that translates into is fabric savings when you have hundreds of these units that you have to make. And that's, if you're just making 2 or 3, it's, so what does it matter? If you don't even need a whole width of fabric, why does it matter? But where it does matter is that over the course of large numbers, so like the small increments over large, like savings, small increments over a long period of time, they do add up. So I calculated that in Katrina's project that using this method would save across the 2 colorway blocks a half a yard per block or 1 yard. And if you're not cheap like me and you buy your fabric at full price, then that's $12.99 or whatever it is that you're buying it at. Also, if you're working from your stash, if you have a 3.5-inch strip, but you don't have very much of it and you feel like you have just enough, well, isn't 20 going to be a lot better than 12? I say yes. So it does help you be more efficacious in integrating fabric in your stash into projects that you have, and knowing that you're not going to run out of fabric. So anyway, one day I'll show you how to do snowball blocks. Everybody has demonstrations on that, but the most important thing that I wanted to share with you today is, number one, the profile of this ruler, the math profile of the ruler, how you can use it to get more for less. And again, this is a less than $20 investment. I use this for everything. And if you're not cutting your binding strips with this, then and sewing it together, you're really missing out on a very efficient way to construct those. All right, I'll go back into my layer and find out some other thing to bore you with in my next video, but I hope you found something helpful here. Get this ruler. You'll never regret it.